Hello, friends. Welcome to episode 1222 of the Locked On Hawks podcast. I am your host, Brad Rowland, coming to you on a Monday evening into Tuesday. And thank you so much for joining us, as always, on the podcast. And please subscribe to the show on YouTube, on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and anywhere you get your podcasts. Today's episode will be myself and Tyler Jones, old friend, good friend of the podcast. Been a little while since he's been on the show. Excited about that. But first, at the top here, a couple of news and notes to touch on before we turn it over to the intro and to Tyler. The injury report came out for game 2 between the Hawks and the Heat. No huge surprises. John Collins not listed at all. That's a positive for the Hawks. We'll see how many minutes he can play and where he starts in game 2 on Tuesday, but he is back and seemingly definitely locked in on some level for game 2. Clint Capella is out for the Hawks. Luke Williams is out for the Hawks. Bogdanovich was says probable with ankle soreness. I expect him to play, obviously, at this point in time. As a period of record keeping of sorts, Bam Adebayo is listed as questionable with a quad contusion for the Heat. I assume he will play. We will see if that limits him in some way because, of course, Bam is very important to Miami overall. Our friends at BetOnline make the Hawks a solid underdog in this game on Tuesday evening. Not a huge surprise, but certainly worth noting at this point in time. And we will see how the Hawks fare, as we talked about on yesterday's podcast. And by the way, that's still very relevant. You missed Sunday's show, the recap of game 1 with all of my analysis and context for the opener. The Hawks should play better in game 2. We'll see if that's enough for them to overcome, but certainly a bounce back spot and some urgency to not go down 2-0 down in Miami. Final piece of news before we turn it over to myself and Tyler is that the NBA announced the tiebreakers for the NBA draft on Monday. No surprises for the Hawks, and none of them actually involve the Hawks, but as a point of clarity, the Hawks officially will have 2 picks in the NBA draft coming up in June. Number 16 overall, number 44 overall are those selections. The just for record-keeping sake, the Hornets pick via the Knicks is not going to be coming this year. It'll be delayed. It's going to be top 16 protected next year and then lottery protected for 2 years after that. So if you're worried about that pick, worry for another year at least. It's not coming this year, and the Hawks will be locked in number 16 and number 44 overall. Okay, with all of that out of the way, we'll get to the intro, and after that, you'll hear myself and Tyler Jones talking about the Hawks, the Heat, the series overall, and leading up to Game 2. Here we go.
You are Locked On Hawks, your daily Atlanta Hawks podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
I am joined now by good friend of the podcast. It's been quite a while since this person's been on the show, but always a fan favorite. People always asking when you'll be coming back, and I'm joined by Tyler Jones. Hello, sir.
What's going on, Brad? Glad to be back. Glad some good. The playoffs are back, so now, I know that the Hawks are going to play their best basketball, their hardest. Game 1 notwithstanding, but compared to the regular season where, their effort was definitely a question, considering how well they played to end the year. But yeah, it's glad to be back on, Brad.
Yeah, I was trying not to bug you too much. It's been longer than usual between appearances. People always ask when you're coming back, and I got the feeling that you were kind of just ejecting at the end of the regular season in the way that you're allowed to do as a fan. I'm not really allowed to do that, but you can just come in and come out. People that don't know this, people might be listening now during the playoffs. Tyler is a Hawks fan, and is certainly more of a fan at this point than I am. It's just an interesting perspective, and we always have fun talking. And honestly, I can tell people right now that you watch more Hawks basketball than most people in the world. So excited to talk to you about what's going on here in the Hawks and where they stand. Obviously, game 1 was not the finest hour. It's sort of a schedule loss in some ways. I guess let's just start there. Did you think it was going to go poorly in game 1 beforehand, or was that a surprise to you?
Well, when I think you could pretty much tell early in the first quarter when Trey couldn't get by anybody.
Yeah.
He couldn't get really any dribble penetration. It was a lot of side-to-side action. That it was probably going to be a long night. And then like Duncan Robinson was just throwing it in the ocean. I was like, all right, well, This is going to be a rough one.
Listen, it's one game. That's the thing. Like I tried to convey this a little bit in game 1. Like, not that you're going to be into this as much as I would be, but like, for instance, like the betting market, like really moved a lot toward Miami. And granted, they won the game, but like, I was not shocked by it, but like I don't really feel differently about the series than I did before game 1. Obviously, the loss matters, but the way they lost doesn't really trouble me too much. There are some questions about like how they're going to beat switching defenses, especially if Trey's not like just out of his mind, because that's their number one thing they could possibly do. But I don't think that game one just like made me feel dire about the series. They were already underdogs coming in for a reason, but like, did your opinion change on the series, or was it just like a one off for you?
I wouldn't say it's a one-off. My opinion doesn't change. My thought going into this series feels a lot like how it was with the Sixers last year, where I think they have a good chance to win, but I don't feel confident that they're going to win compared to how I thought about the Knicks series, right?
Agreed.
If we can put it like that, like I feel like the Heat are clearly a good basketball team. It's going to take the Hawks playing good basketball to beat them. And they certainly weren't doing it last night or last afternoon. They played at like 1:00,
Yeah.
which
Speaking
that
of
was
which,
tough.
the quick turnaround did not make it any easier. I kind of warned people about that, and like we saw a little bit of that in other series too. But the Hawks had the worst of all schedules in the entire 16-team tournament, having to play Friday night on the road and then play Sunday afternoon at 1:00 in Miami. That was a
Yeah,
tough sledding.
and beyond that Friday night was a very emotional, hard fought
They had to come back.
comeback
Yeah.
really performance where Trae Young had to play possibly the best basketball of his career, or some of the best basketball of his career, just to like get them over the top to beat the Cavaliers, who are with Jarrett Allen back, were at least good defensively.
Yeah.
And so like it just you could see it. You could probably you would think they're probably not going to come out there guns blazing like they were last year in game ones, where they would just catch these teams by surprise and smoke them. They're going to have to. This team's well disciplined. They're not going to make mistakes like other teams. They're not young. They're veteran laden. So it's going to require the Hawks to execute, and they just weren't doing it in game one.
Yeah, so I want to start by talking about the offense, because clearly, if the Hawks win this series or you're even competitive in the series, they're going to have to be good on offense, because the defense is what it is, and we'll come back to that later on. But obviously, we saw what Miami's plan was in game one. They kind of flummoxed Trey. Trey was kind of out of it. They were switching, and that is, if you're going to see something that's concerning about this series, in my opinion, from game one, it's the fact that the Hawks offense did not look like it had many answers. Now, Miami's defense is quite good when they want it to be, when they're not playing Robinson in particular and Hero in particular. Like their starting five is really good defensively. And I think that we saw that a little bit. I think with Collins coming back more, hopefully in game two, no word on that as we record this, but he'll be playing, I assume, and maybe playing more than he was in game one. That's maybe an answer. But what do you think they can do differently on offense? Because if it's just the same, honestly, they shouldn't be. They won't be this bad. They shot the ball terribly, all that stuff. But like, there also wasn't a lot of like easy shot making either.
Well, full stop. The loss of Capella really hurt them, because if they were going to switch, Capella could hurt them on the offensive glass, and Akon was just not that level of offensive rebounder.
Yep.
The easy adjustment the Hawks can make, to me, is start Collins. Like, I mean, if he's healthy and he's ready to go, and he looked good physically.
Do you want to start him
like,
with Okongwu or at center?
Yeah, I would start him alongside of Kongwu and try to match the Heat's most athletic physical lineup with athleticism and physicality in turn. I don't like Gallinari on the floor with Kyle Lowry at the same time. So that's maybe something Nate may want to manage that somehow. But it's debatable, because Collins actually looked pretty good at center.
Well, and
like,
because they don't have another center option. Obviously, they can play Gorgie if they want to, but like I think Nate clearly decided they want to have 48 minutes of either Okongwu and Collins. They can still do that if they start
and
Collins.
they just got to stagger, but
Yeah.
and like maybe have Okongwu come off the bench, or come to the Gallinari be the first guy off the bench and have Collins at center, and then really crank it up on offense. And it's early. I guess I need to get the DeAndre Hunter discussion out there real quick.
I wasn't going to tee you up, but I knew it was coming at some point, so that's okay.
I found him offensively, like he's just he just got to be quicker with his decision making. And he has to play if he's going to be on this starting lineup and they're switching, he's got to play with more force, and he has to finish shots. And there's because what we're losing with not starting Bogey is we're losing another ball handler / creator that can make the right read, which DeAndre Hunter is just not going to be able to make the pass. That's going to be the switch. Trae Young and Kevin Huerter are the only two guys who can. I will say I did like what John Collins was doing in the short roll. And I thought when he came into the game, he brought an element that the Hawks were severely lacking, which was simply being able to put the ball on the floor, collapse the defense, and then kick the ball out. Yep. That's not something these guys that's just not a lot of these guys' game. And even though Collins has a limited handle, he's such a threat that guys respect him. Players respect his ability to finish at the rim. So that causes, combined with the athleticism, he has a level of gravity that nobody else on this team has, especially with Capella out. And another thing, Okongwu's just got to be more of a force on offense. But I feel like it would benefit him if he got to play alongside Collins, and the Hawks get to play two athletic guys at the same time. A novel concept, I know, but it would be nice if Nate would play Collins with either play Collins alongside Okongwu or alongside Gallinari instead of literally nobody. And then those are at this moment, those three guys are your five best, relative, especially with Capella out. Nate's going to need all three of them, because I don't want to see DeAndre Hunter at the 4. It's just tough, man. It's just tough.
I know why they're doing it, because of lack of options, but
yes. But you watch Hunter, and I think the issue is he's just not on the level as the other guys. I just don't think he's on par with the rest of the he's not on par with what Kevin Huerter and Bogdanovich are doing, and it's noticeable. And the Heat are took advantage. I felt like in game 1 where they really took advantage of his lack of creation. So they need more from him. He's got to be more of a force physically on both ends of the floor. But that's something we've been saying about Hunter all year. But he's got to play better. Trae Young, of course, has to play better. I'm not worried about Trae Young. He always figures stuff out. The switching. They gotta hope John Collins still has some touch with that right hand on the switches that he can punish on post ups. If there's one thing I am concerned about, I didn't like the look of his. It felt like he was very meticulous with his jump shot. If that makes sense, I feel like he's searching for his touch a bit. He still got it, but it's not what it is with the broken finger or whatever.
Yeah, it's the shooting hand finger. That's obviously going to hold him. And that was one of the questions they had about him overall, was can he even be a shooting threat? I think he made a 3 and looked okay. It's just that he's not going to be his normal shooting self.
He's not going to be firing and
We'll have more with myself and Tyler in a moment, but first, some sponsors on today's show, and the first of which is PrizePicks. NBA fans, if you're looking for a daily fantasy option this year, you can check out the award-winning app at PrizePicks. PrizePicks is daily fantasy made easy. I love it, and I know that you will too. It's so easy to use. All you do is pick 2 to 5 players and over-under their projections, and win up to 10 times on any entry. Just you against the projected numbers, which makes it very, very easy to check out and also to evaluate your entry as it goes. An entire entry can be just a minute or less, and they're also safe at PrizePicks. They offer fast withdrawals. They have props on everything you can think of, including points, rebounds, assists, and even steals. They have mixed sports stuff as well. If you like MMA or soccer or baseball, etc., pair it all together, use those skills to your advantage. And for a limited time, PrizePicks is an exclusive offer for all of our users. It's a no-brainer, and $50 for free if a player in your first PrizePicks entry scores even a single point if you use the promo code NBA. That's right, exclusive offer for our Locked On fans. Sign up today, use the code NBA, $50 for free on a player if they're in the first entry if they score even a single point. So basically, it's impossible, or at least close to it, to not win on your first entry if you use that promo code NBA. Check it all out today at PrizePicks. Baseball is in full swing now, and of course, as the playoffs are around in the NBA, Hawks fans keenly aware of that at the moment, but also a jam-packed slate of games each and every night, including when the Hawks are not playing over the next couple of months. And with that in mind, BetOnline is the number one source for all of your sports needs and your betting information this year. They have the latest odds, contests, futures, player props, exotics, and much more. And BetOnline also has the latest developments in sports, including podcasts and reviews for all the leagues this season, not just basketball or baseball either. They have everything that you want in the wagering space, including live betting and favorite casino games, and they have other sports as well. Really, the full gamut of sports when it comes to golf, tennis, esports, auto racing, horse racing. They have boxing, MMA, hockey, soccer, cricket, entertainment bets, and much more. And future stuff is always available both in baseball, the season stuff just getting underway now, and also football is always lurking, as well as the Eastern Conference Finals bets and NBA Finals bets if you want to look way in the future in the NBA market. Head to the website right now, betonline.net, on your computer and mobile device to learn more about the trends and the action across the sports world. One more time, check it out at betonline.net. BetOnline, where the game starts. So before the break, we were talking about like Collins and his ability to shoot, and I really think that he's almost more valuable as like a slip guy. Like you talked about his short roll passing, but this is where you miss Capella too. In that one of the ways you beat switches is having guys who know how to not screen, like how to slip and get to the rim. And Collins is great at that. And Collins was not quite there. You also brought up the fact that Gallo isn't necessarily the greatest fit in certain ways with Kyle Lowry. I am worried, as we sort of talk about the defense a little bit too. I don't know where Gallo's supposed to go on defense in general in this series. Like maybe when Tucker's on the floor, he can guard Tucker, which is what they tried to do in game one. But for as good as he was, or at least as decent as he was on offense in game one, he was as bad on defense. Like I think he was probably even worse than Trey on defense in game one. Like he just can't be on the floor sometimes. So the options are not great there. I mean, I wonder, I guess it'd be kind of curative if Collins could play 30 minutes, but I don't know if he can. So what happens if Collins can't play 30 minutes, I guess is the better question.
Well, they're in trouble.
Agreed, I guess. Yeah.
Gallinari's not a young man anymore, and so I don't.
He played 41 minutes against Cleveland. 41.
Yeah, and you know what? Maybe Gallo can play better defensively if he gets a little, if he's a bit has more spring in his step. Like there may be something with that. I was like, Gallo played 41 because I noticed that in the box score for the Cavs game. It's like, oh, he might be in trouble because. That's just he's just not that level of athlete anymore where he can do that. So it is possible.
They had to do it because they didn't have Collins. Like I get why they did it, but now that you have a guy in Collins who can play both spots, it does make it a little bit easier. But I mean, I don't want to overstate it, but like they kind of need Gallo's offense in this series because he actually can beat switches because he's actually enormous and shoots over guys, and we saw that a little bit in game one. It shouldn't be your primary offense, but it is a weapon they could certainly use on offense.
I mean, they're going to need them, and they're just going to have to figure out a scheme that'll work defensively against this Heat team. My thing with defending the Heat is they have to put pressure on Kyle Lowry and Jimmy Butler as ball handlers. They're the only two guys with with that creation ability on this Heat team. Tyler Hero can create for himself, but for others, it's a bit questionable. And not questionable. It's just like he's not the natural playmaker that those two guys are.
Yeah, he's a scorer. I mean, Hero is not my favorite guy in the world anyway, but like he can get his own for sure. But he's looking to score. He's not looking to pass generally.
Kyle Lowry and Jimmy Butler are looking to break the defense down, get the Heat in offense, and get those corner threes that they're great at making. So it's imperative that like DeAndre Hunter can't play back on Jimmy Butler. Like he's got to be in his grill. He's got to be forcing Jimmy Butler back, forcing him to make decisions with the ball. Because you can't just let Jimmy initiate the offense all willy-nilly and it'd be easy for the Heat to get these guys off these screens, off these pin downs for open three-pointers. Like they got to be point of attack defense. We've said it all year, hasn't been the best, but I've found it to be really good. These last couple games, particularly Kevin Huerter, Dylan Wright, those two guys have been really impressive as putting pressure on the ball. And even TLC, I liked what TLC brought when he came in for a limited amount of minutes in game one, just putting pressure on, making them have to make decisions because the Miami Heat will turn the ball over if you do that.
Yep.
But like game one, like they didn't have it. Like there's no other way to say it. Like physically, I don't think they had it to do that, and they couldn't match the Heat's level of intensity and physicality. So they're going to have to do they're going to have to do that if they want to get some stops against the Heat, which they can do. The Miami Heat, while they do have a good offense, it's not like they have all these elite shot makers. You can pressure them, you can cause them making turn the ball over, but you have to play with force and physicality. So hopefully they can do that in game 2.
Yeah, and I think it all feeds on itself too. Like, the Hawks have been awesome all year at taking care of the ball on offense, and they didn't really do that in game 1. And that lets Miami get in transition. The Heat's half-court offense is just okay. It's not fantastic. Now, they're obviously really good at three-point shooting, but they don't have this, they don't have that singular, dominant guy. Jimmy and Kyle are good players, obviously, but they're not Trae Young, dominating the offense. They don't have that. They actually run their system. They run the stuff off ball like you talked about. And if the Hawks can take care of the ball and get back on defense and set themselves, and that's easier to do that when you actually make your own shots. And that's something Nate talks about a lot, which I think is kind of overstated sometimes, but offense does fuel your defense. Like if you just can't make a shot and you're having to get back every time and bust it after every miss, it can wear you down in a big way too. So
yeah. And to be fair to them, they were getting open looks. They just weren't making. These are good.
The Hawks should have made more shots than they made.
The Hawks are good shooter. This is a good shooting. This is a great shooting basketball team. Full stop. With a bunch of guys who can make shots with a hand in their face and without. So you expect they're going to shoot a lot better than what they did in game 1, where they nobody could make any shots. And it really, when that happens, that puts pressure on these guys to get to the rim. But if they're switching everything, you can't use the pick and roll. So you got to beat a guy in isolation. But isolation takes effort. And that takes energy to do. So
yeah, that's the thing about Trae in this series. Not that Trae's in the best shape of anybody that you're going to find, but it's really hard to have to go against the switch and create an ISO every possession, and that's what the Heat are trying to make him do in this series. And it's
some stuff. I think also they might want to have Kevin Huerter bring the ball up the floor and initiate the offense.
They started doing a little bit more once Trae kind of wore down a little bit. I think Nate would recognize that and try to get Bogey and Huerter on, and even DeLon on the ball a little bit. But more of that.
The Hawks may want to start the game with that. Maybe bring DeLon Wright in early as well for Hunter. Again, I hate to keep bringing this man's name up. But this is if you want to know what the issue with the basketball team is, even throughout the season, is that their small forward position is just not good enough. So we have to do all these. We got to play 3-guard lineups, and Nate's going to have to accept that. Play these 3-guard lineups to get the necessary ball creation that they need, because they can't have Trae Young. We can't have Trae Young what the Heat did and get away with what they were doing in game 1, which was just wearing him out. And
you're drawing dead at that point. Obviously, Trae's gonna be better than he was in game 1. No one's saying otherwise, but you got to make his life a little bit easier, especially because you're going to ask him to at least try on defense more than he ever does in this series. So the workload on him is just going to be enormous, and he's not going to rest a lot. Obviously, he didn't. The one bright spot maybe in game 1 is that Trae didn't have to play a lot of minutes because they were getting killed. So maybe he'll be fresh on Tuesday, but he's going to have some help around there. And you and I talk about this all the time. Their best lineup includes Trae, Kevin Huerter, and Bogdan Bogdanovic. We kind of know that. We talked about it for a long time, but it's those 3 guys for sure playing together, and we'll see what they do around them. But that's their best lineup,
and they need to play because Nate couldn't get to that lineup. He just couldn't get to those 3 guys on the floor at the same time in game 1. I think Huerter got in foul trouble.
Right. The Huerter foul trouble. You can't afford foul trouble. And also, we talked about this even in the Cleveland game a little bit offline, I think you and I did. Miami doesn't play super big either. If they're not playing Tucker, or even if they are playing Tucker, it's not a huge offensive threat. The Hawks can play those 3 guys and DeLon Wright if they have to. That's really small. I get that. But against the Heat, who are playing Jimmy Butler at the 4, it's not as small as you might think it is.
More important that the Heat aren't big. They're also not that athletic outside of Bam Adebayo. There's not a super athletic
after they have. Yeah, they have skill guys, and Jimmy's physical as all get out and plays physically. But Kyle Lowry is old. He's crafty and physical and maybe even dirty sometimes. But Hero and Robinson and Strus and Gabe Vincent are they're not great athletes. They're just they're skill guys. Bam is a freak. Obviously, that matters. But even Tucker just plays with physicality. He's not a great athlete. So
and while Bam,
actually have that.
Bam's a great athlete, but he can't just like he and John Collins are good. They've always played well against each other.
Yeah.
They kind of like he can't just overpower John, and and because they're basically the same height and like Bam doesn't have this ridiculous wingspan. Like there's no real physical matchup advantage. That's why you can get away with playing John at the 5. But that goes back to my earlier point where I was like, I want to see a Will Collins out there at the same time. Where now let's force 38-year-old PJ Tucker guard Trae Young out on the floor, right? Like I know he's a great he's a great defender in his own right, but I mean I like that matchup with Trae Young. I like Trae Young on PJ Tucker. So let's get JC out there who will cause the Heat to actually have to scramble because they can't just let John Collins do what he wants. He can finish over anybody on this team. They don't have exceptional length. Even if they did, he probably could still finish. But because they're a smaller team, John has a bit more freedom than he potentially has against like the Sixers or the Bucks. So like if John's back and he's healthy and like he's good to go, like they got to use him. They got to use him.
Oh yeah, they have to.
That's
huge.
They got to ride the Trae Young John Collins pick and roll, Brad. They got to ride that. If they're going to win the series, that's going to be the key right there.
And they got to get into it, and that way John can slip if he needs to beat switches, and he can punish stuff if they need to do that. Yeah, I'm with you. Obviously, we don't know what his limit's going to be. We didn't even know in game 1, and we'll see how much he's able to play. But if he's himself, that would certainly help things. We're going to take one more break, and we'll come back and talk about the projection for the rest of the series here with Tyler Jones. There are so many mix and walls right now in the auto world, and it's basically impossible for a local chain store to have all of the parts that you possibly could want or need for your car or your truck. And even if they had them, do you actually want to deal with the person behind the counter that asks all the pointless questions? And honestly, they just want to sell you the brand that the warehouse happens to carry that's very easy for them and profitable for them. Instead of doing all that, RockAuto.com is the best option for you at home or in your pocket, and access is 24/7, 365. Why spend more for the exact same auto parts for a chain store or dealership? You can order them at RockAuto.com in just mere moments, and RockAuto.com is a family business serving customers for more than 20 years at this point. The prices are reliably low for each and every customer, and the ease is really right in front of you. And they have absolutely everything you could possibly need for your car or your truck. That includes brake parts and motor oil, tail lamps, and even carpet. RockAuto.com is the place to go right now to see all the parts available for your car or your truck. And once you get there, write locked on in the box that asks you how you heard about RockAuto.com so they know that we sent you to them. Amazing selection, reliable low prices, all the parts, and everything else you could possibly need for your car or your truck. RockAuto.com. Tyler, obviously down 1-0 as we record this. Game 2 in Miami. The Hawks are going to be underdogs in that game, and then they come home. This is a very stupid question, but it's just a way to talk about it. How bad do they need game 2? Like, are they drawing dead if they lose game 2? I guess the question I'll ask you. Do they have to win game 2?
No, in large part because I don't know Capella's status, but also like
as of now, right now, all we know about Capella is that he's out for game 2, and they're not saying anything else about it, which I don't blame them for, but it's pretty on brand for Nate. They just share nothing, basically.
Here's the thing with this Hawks team, and it was pretty clear last year in the playoffs, and it was clear, I think it was really noticeable if you notice in the Cavs series. When Trae Young figures it out on offense to get consistently good offense, there's no like going back for the other team. Like there's no adjustment to be made. So when Trae does figure it out, that might be game 3. It might even be game 4. But when he figures it out, then then the Hawks are in the series. But if Trae's gonna play like he did game 1, no, they're getting swept and there's nothing to talk about.
I certainly agree with that. If he's as bad, and he won't be, but if he's anything close to what he was in game 1, they have no chance. And the thing, man, this is crazy. I think I emphasized it a lot on the podcast on Sunday, but just one more time. Trae and Bogey combined to shoot 1 of 20 in game 1, Tyler. 1 of 20. It's impossibly bad. Like, I'm sorry. That's never happening again. That's the one bright spot. And of course, the other side of that is that, Duncan Robinson was 8 of 9 from 3, all that stuff. So, like, I'm kind of with you. I think if they lose game 2, everyone will write them off. And I don't necessarily blame people for doing that. But I do feel like if they show signs in game 2, then coming home, like, they can win.
To me, it's less important that they win. It's more important that Trae Young
gets comfortable.
Because once he does, then the series starts.
Yeah, that's a good point. Because if he's not, I mean, we said it all year long, but like if the Hawks go as Trae goes in a lot of ways, and if he is bad, and that was my concern in the play-in, and granted, it didn't necessarily bite them, but even we saw it in the first half of the Cleveland game. He wasn't good, and they were down by 15 points. So like the Hawks cannot overcome Trae struggling. And that's very simple, but it's also true. Like, he has to be good or they cannot win this series. They can't even win games in this series. I'll be surprised if they win a game in this series that Trae does not play well in. Does that make sense?
Well, he can shoot. So there's a difference, right? He can shoot poorly and they still win. And
Agreed.
he still played well.
But play poorly and shoot poorly are different.
We have to find that designation where, yes, Trae's not making his shots, but he's getting the guys into the offense. The Hawks are getting easy looks.
Oh, Trae can dominate. You know this, but Trae can dominate a game while shooting 4 for 15. He's capable of doing that.
Exactly. And that's the thing with they need Trae to break this team down. So
yeah, no, because he creates everything else. I mean, if you have to account for him, if the Heat, honestly, Miami played great in game 1, but I'll be interested to see what their counter is if at all in this series their defense gets a little bit out of sorts, because it just didn't happen at all in game 1. And they're vets, and that's the concern, is that Miami is extremely well coached and they're veteran guys and they know how to do it, and they're also sort of scheme versatile. But we also have not seen them take a punch at all, because game 1, it was just a slow death march toward Miami. The Hawks are going to have a run at some point in game 2, and then we'll see what happens. I'm intrigued by that for sure, especially because, like, quietly, like, guys like Bam and Tyler Hero were kind of not huge factors in game 1. It was the supporting guys, PJ making all his shots, Tucker Robinson making all his shots. And then we'll see. I assume that either Trae or Bogdanovich will have something going in game 2.
And that goes back to my earlier point when I talked about how John Collins and Bam, like, they've been a good, they've had some good battles against each other where they play well against each other, but, like, there's not going to be one scale guy overplaying the other. And then you combine that with the Hawks. Like, the Hawks have a Kongu as well. So a Kongu, Collins versus Bam, like, the Hawks can match up with that just fine and either draw dead or slightly win because they got one more extra guy.
Yeah. Anything else that you're looking for? I want to ask you, like, before I forget to do this, like, anything that you would just be like, we talked about it a little bit, like with Hunter and playing Collins more, but anything else that you think that they need to change that they haven't changed in terms of just, like, not just playing better, but, like, actually, stuff that Nate can do, adjustments, rotations, just play Collins more? Or is it just, what else would you want to see?
Herter running the offense a bit more.
Yeah. With Trae on the floor, you mean?
Yeah, with Trae on the floor. Yeah. And then also, like, getting the ball to Collins early and often. I really think, Brad, if they're going to win this series, like, I know I'm the number one Collins fan in the world. I get it.
You are. That's okay.
People think like he's not a winning player for some reason because they've never watched him play basketball game until they watch one game where, I just don't get it. But, like, they're going to need him on offense, and they're going to need the guy who averaged 20 and 10 his second year in the league. Like, they're going to need that guy back because Capella's out. At the same time, the Heat do not play big. Their rim protection isn't elite. It's not some elite thing. So if they can get John Collins going, and it doesn't have to just be Trae Young, John Collins pick and roll. It could be Kevin Huerter, John Collins pick and roll, Bogdanovich Collins pick and roll. They just got to get him the ball going downhill and trust that he's going to make the right decision. Because I believe that that's going to be their key in forcing the Heat to change what they want to do, because they're not going to want to live with Tyler Hero being the low man on John Collins. Like, that's just not going to work.
That won't work.
I mean, it's not going to work with PJ Tucker. It's not the only guy who can compete with John Collins at the rim is Bam Adebayo on the Miami Heat.
Yeah.
Like, I don't even think Dwayne Dedmon. I mean, I love Dwayne. Love him. Dwayne doesn't have it. The juice.
Well, he won't play. I mean, the thing is, they're going to treat him like the guy they have to play when Bam sits. Basically, like, he's not going to play that much in this series. I do wonder what the Hawks will do when Bam's off the floor the rest of the series. But
that's my. I mean, but that goes to my point. Like, when they've beaten the Heat, it's because the Heat love to switch Bam out onto the perimeter.
He's good at that.
That opens up possibilities for Collins and Capella to dominate on the inside. So it's the key is when that happens, they have to get the ball to their bigs who know how to finish against anybody in the league, especially teams without rim protection. But they have to get them the ball. Like, they cannot waste time letting the Heat reconfigure their defense in a way that won't be so damaging. Like, they got to get these guys the ball going downhill.
They got to go quickly too. Like, it's just bringing it full circle from earlier. they got to make quick decisions. Nate talked about this after the game, and I'm not always. I don't think Nate's the greatest, adjustment tactician kind of guy on offense. He's not the most creative coach, but he did say, and I agree with this, they need to be able to go side to side more, like getting them on the move, getting Miami moving is going to be big in this series.
Getting them moving to open up those passing lanes, but they got to be quicker. Like they cannot hold the basketball, jab step. Let me survey the team like I'm LeBron James. I mean, granted, that's what Trae Young does. That's his game. I get it, but he's got to be quick. Like he's got to be.
Yep.
He's got to go quicker.
They all do. Everybody has to go quicker.
I mean, they just all do. They all have to be like, okay, if they're going to switch everything, we have to make them work for it. Like we can't just ISO at the top of the key and just hope something happens. We gotta make them work for it. Tire them out. If they're gonna play, it's an exhausting style of basketball. If they're gonna play this way, make them work for it.
Well, right, and that's the one concern is that this is the first round, so maybe they won't wear down because I have some concerns about Miami long term because like playing this style for 4 rounds is like almost impossible to do. But in one round, maybe they can. I don't know. It would be helpful if Clint Capella was healthy. I guess start praying for Clint Capella's knee at some point. But
yeah.
Other than that, I think that Okongwu will be better. I wonder if he just needed to get a game out of the way. He's still so young, and I think he's awesome, and I know you do too. But he's going to have to be better. Is obviously he's not alone. Most guys are going to be better than they were in game one, but he was kind of a non-factor, and he can't.
Yeah, and Brad, this goes back to my issue with this Hawks team. He doesn't have a role. His role is to be Clint Capella, but like he's not Clint Capella's size. Like he has a different game.
They're just different players. Yeah, I mean
exactly.
That's the thing. You always compare these guys to each other for obvious reasons, but like they are very, very different players. Like,
and Okongwu was a different player than Collins. Like he's a guy. Like I'm like, let my man bring the ball up the floor and initiate the offense. Like but the Hawks have never tried anything else other than Trae Young's show. I get it,
I do think this is more a long-term point, but with Okongwu, like if he becomes the guy, and we'll talk about this in the offseason when we need to, but if he becomes the guy and they move on for Capella at some point or whatever, they need to actually tailor what they do to him. Like for him to be the guy that he can be, he can't just be playing the Capella role. Like he's the stuff that he can do really well. They need to actually accentuate. Like obviously the Bam comparison has been made to death, and you can't really just say he's gonna be Bam. But like watch what Miami does with Bam, and that's what you kind of have to do with a guy like Okongwu to maximize him because he's not a great rebounder. He's not.
But Okongwu has great touch. Like he has a great floater game.
Absolutely.
Let's use that, but you have to throw him the ball and be like, "Hey, Okongwu, we want you to be a scorer, especially if Bam Adebayo is going to switch off for you."
It's just really tough because, like, in the middle, I mean, not that anybody could have foreseen this, but losing Capella when they did, having one day to prepare for this series without Capella, that just changes so much. I know you know that, but like Capella, has been so important to them. Not obviously defense is like speaks for itself, but even offensively, he does things on offense that other guys don't do on this team. And then to suddenly not have him with only one day to prep and a 20-year-old backup center that now has to play 35 minutes a game, like it's just a tough ask, man. Like it's a big loss. Like obviously it's not as big as Trae, but I mean if you told me 3 days ago, other than Trae, who can the Hawks afford to not have? Like Capella's the guy I would have said they cannot afford to not have, and he's now out for a little bit of time. So it's brutal.
But that goes to my point. Like they got it. Like they can't treat him like Capella, where you only want Capella finishing at the rim. Let him touch the basketball, get a feel for the game, so he can figure out where he can get his offense from. Because they're going to need his scoring. Again, if the Heat are going to switch, they gotta punish it. They just have to. But it can't be. We gotta wait for the perfect, optimal post-up passing angle. It's got to be. They make the switch. We get him the ball before they set their defense.
They got to go fast.
We got to go. Like they just got to adapt that mindset. Like, hey, slip the screen, catch the ball, make the decision.
Agreed.
And like Okongwu Collins have shown, it's limited because the Hawks don't do this. Right. That when you get them in the short roll, they're good at making the right play.
Oh, that's been the biggest development of Collins' game in the last year and a half has been his short roll passing and the way that he's more comfortable doing that than he was before. And that's been huge for him. And obviously using that in the series will be big now that he's more comfortable and back and all that stuff. Well, I hope this is a long series for the Hawks' sake because I don't think they're going to win the next 4 games in a row. So if it's a long series, that's probably good for the Hawks, let's just say. If that happens again, I'm sure we'll talk. And if they lose this round, we'll talk about the offseason stuff. I don't want you to just eject on the Hawks. So
Well,
let
I
me just
can't
get that
now.
out. They made the
If they
playoffs. You're good.
lose, if they get swept, then
Then you're back out for a while. No, we'll see. Obviously, you and I have some discussions to have about the long-term small forward, the draft, free agency, trades, all that stuff that we'll save for another
Travis
day.
Schlenk.
Travis Schlenk, Nick McMillan, all that stuff. Big pictures topics that we'll save. But I do appreciate you jumping on short notice on this Monday afternoon and evening. So thank you for coming on, my friend. Anything to plug? Any anime that you want to get out there? Because I know that's your other
Not
passion.
anime. I know people who have been following me on Twitter know I'm
You're sharing lots of stuff that I have no idea what you're talking about on Twitter, but I've seen it.
yeah,
I'm just
man. I'm reading. Let me make sure I got the name right.
Here we go.
Because
this is the best part of the show. Usually at the end here, when you share recs of things.
Yeah, the Stormlight Archives, high fantasy series that is taking over my life, Brad. It's all I've read for like the past week or so. Like since I got the first book, I can't stop reading it. Like this podcast is taking time out of my day from reading this series, and then also I've been playing Elden Ring, but I put Elden Ring on hold because I was playing Elden Ring, and Elden Ring's like possibly one of the greatest games of all time, video games of all time. I had to put that game on hold because I was like, man,
the playoffs.
I'm in the mood for some high fantasy because I haven't read a high fantasy series since like A Song of Ice and Fire, which is Game of Thrones for you plebeians if you don't know.
Like me.
So I'm actually not watching anime or manga. I'm reading a book, Brad. Wow. But it's basically the same. Like honestly, like
I believe you. I defer to you on this stuff. That's for sure.
It's a very shonen manga-esque series, which is why I'm enjoying it so much. So
I just watch basketball because there's like 5 games a day right now. I guess there's 3 tonight as we're recording this on Monday. There were 4 yesterday, 4 on Saturday.
I'll say this: if the Hawks win, I'm back at watching basketball again. But like when the Hawks lost, I immediately turned all basketball off. There's no like I'm at my parents' house for a bit of a mini vacation. Like he wanted to talk some basketball. I'm like, nope. No basketball talk.
That's just the end. Listen,
basketball didn't happen.
That in a nutshell is why my listenership goes down. Anytime the Hawks lose, people don't listen to the show, which I understand. I'm not blaming anybody for doing that. It's just always the case without fail. Whenever they lose, people listen less. That's just what it is. People want to eject. I get it.
Oh, I'm always here. One more thing. I know you want to get out of here, but like,
no, you're good.
I'm enjoying. I think the Grizzlies Timberwolves series is going to be super fun, in large part because neither team appears to understand that you have to play proper defense for a full 48 minutes. Like they just don't care.
Oh, the Wolves never care. To be fair, the Wolves just never ever care. They always gamble and do crazy stuff, and it works sometimes.
Brett, I watched the Grizzlies multiple times, like go up, get an impressive dunk, and then everybody screaming at the top of their lungs, and I'm like, guys,
your Grizzlies,
the ball. Not my Grizzlies. I'm going for the Wolves, man. You know me and Ant Edwards. We ride
your local team, the Memphis Grizzlies, though. I'm just saying. You do love Anthony Edwards, though. I'll give you that.
You saw how he put Ja in handcuffs.
I'll say this. I was not always the highest Anthony Edwards. He was really, really good on defense in game 1. Like I was impressed by his defensive performance in game 1. And obviously offensively he's been awesome the last 2 games too. But
regardless, my point is with that series is like the emotional maturity from these teams is kind of not there.
Yep.
So that's why it's super entertaining. And I think it's probably going to be the best series in large part because these teams get emotionally drunk so quickly over nothing. Like,
shouts to Nate McMillan for emotionally drunk. Shouts to Nate. But yes, I'm with you 100%. That's a fun series. That's going to be. I can see your devoted your devotion split between your hometown Memphis Grizzlies and Anthony Edwards. So I'm just giving you grief. Tyler, thank you for joining me, my friend. I do appreciate it. We'll talk soon. Enjoy your mini vacation. Shouts to your folks, and we'll always be here.
All right, thanks, Brett.
As for everybody else, please subscribe to the podcast, and we'll see you after Game 2 on Tuesday.